Welcome back to the Stocks Update. Today's video is going to focus entirely on Lucid Motors, and I want to break down some important expectations heading into the new trading week. We'll talk about potential triggers that could introduce volatility in the stock price, key economic events you should be aware of, and all the major factors that might affect Lucid's performance in the coming days. Starting with the broader economic calendar for this week, there are several critical data releases that could have major impacts across the entire stock market, including Lucid's stock. We kick things off with the JOLTS job openings and labor turnover survey report. Currently, forecasts suggest around 7.4 million job openings. This figure gives investors insight into the health of the labor market. A higher number typically signals robust employment trends, while a sharp drop-off could trigger concerns about economic slowing. A very big day indeed. We're going to get both the gross domestic product GDP figures and the personal consumption expenditures PCE report released on the same day. Normally, these two indicators are separated across different days, but this time they're dropping together, which could result in heightened market volatility. GDP will tell us how much the economy grew or shrank in the last quarter. PCE is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, giving more clues about consumer spending and price increases. We're going to see the manufacturing PMI data, a critical indicator for the health of the industrial sector. The 50-point threshold is important here. Readings above 50 imply expansion in the manufacturing sector. Readings below 50 signal contraction and economic slowdown. This particular data point could be closely watched to see if manufacturing is finally rebounding or still struggling. Beyond just the regular economic data, there's also chatter around potential tariff updates. Former President Donald Trump seems to be aggressively negotiating new trade deals, particularly with major countries like India, Japan, and South Korea. Although early-stage discussions don't always immediately affect markets, any concrete deals that appear positive for U.S. businesses could spark optimism. Most importantly, China remains the elephant in the room. There was some overnight movement late last week where China appeared to make the first move toward renewed negotiations. If progress continues between the U.S. and China, it could remove a huge cloud of uncertainty hanging over the markets, possibly fueling a rally. Adding even more to the excitement, this week also features earnings from some of the biggest companies on the planet: Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Facebook. These giants often set the tone for the entire stock market. If their earnings or forward guidance exceed expectations, the broader market could surge, giving Lucid an extra boost as well. Now, shifting the focus back specifically to Lucid, there's a major internal development that I've touched on briefly in previous videos, but now looks officially confirmed. Supply chain issues. It turns out Lucid is facing some significant supply chain problems, especially concerning the Gravity SUV project. This was confirmed through a community response where Lucid Oasis posted a direct message from Nick, a representative from Lucid. He apologized for the delays and frustration caused by these supply chain challenges. To be fair, this situation feels eerily similar to when Lucid struggled to scale production of the Lucid Air sedan. History seems to be repeating itself. The good news this time is that Lucid is at least acknowledging the problem openly. Back during the Air production ramp-up, leadership like Peter Rawlinson and Jeff Curry largely ignored supply chain criticisms, frustrating investors even more. Now, with Nick directly addressing the issue, there's a sense that Lucid's communication has improved, even if the execution still needs serious work. Let me know in the comments. Lucid's recent activities in Europe. Aside from the production challenges, Lucid has been actively promoting its brand across Europe. They've been attending various auto shows and recently had a presence in Amsterdam for King's Day celebrations in the Netherlands. They showcased Lucid Air vehicles wrapped in a bright Dutch orange color, quite fitting for the occasion. It's great to see Lucid pushing its name and presence internationally, especially given that European EV adoption is much stronger compared to other parts of the world. Building brand awareness in places like the Netherlands, Germany, and Switzerland could be a long-term growth driver for the company. Now, shifting gears, let's talk about what's happening on the short-selling front. Short interest in Lucid has surged dramatically. Right now, 29.6% of Lucid's free float is sold short. This amounts to around 359.67 million shares. That's a huge amount. Almost a third of all available shares are being bet against. During the period between March 31st and April 15th, many investors were confused why Lucid wasn't following the broader market higher. Turns out, shorts were aggressively using dark pools to build their positions anonymously, making it very hard for normal tracking platforms to detect the activity in real time. They added over 75 million shares short in that window, explaining the bizarre underperformance. Even more shocking, at one point during this time frame, the available shares to short dropped to zero, a first for Lucid since it started trading publicly. It's clear that short sellers are doubling down aggressively. Options market activity and implications. Looking at the options chain, Lucid closed the week at around $2.50 per share. There's a large amount of open interest at the $2.50 strike price, about 19K contracts. Under normal conditions, this would create upward pressure because market makers would need to hedge by buying shares. That buying would typically push the stock higher into Monday. However, there was some unusual after-hours trading activity on Friday. One massive trade involved around $3.5 million worth of shares, suggesting that many of these options may have already been covered. If that's the case, the expected gamma squeeze effect might not materialize on Monday morning. Looking further ahead into the week, there's 9K contracts open at the $2.50 strike, 7K contracts at the $3 strike. This dynamic suggests that shorts might try to suppress the price below key levels like $2.50 or $3 to ensure they maximize their profits. Key support and resistance levels. From a technical standpoint, immediate resistance lies around $2.55 pivot R1 level. Strong support is down at $2.33. Assuming there are no major negative surprises from economic data or global news, Lucid should trade between $2.55 and $2.69 this week, relatively stable but still cautious. However, if we get any positive catalyst like a breakthrough in U.S. China negotiations, Lucid could spike much higher, pushing toward $2.69 to $2.89 or more. Lastly, looking at Lucid's technical chart, here's an important positive. Lucid successfully closed above its 50-day moving average, which currently sits at around $2.44. This is a major technical achievement. Historically, when Lucid holds above its 50-day moving average, it often experiences a 30 to 40% rally in the following weeks. It also explains why short sellers became so aggressive around March and April. They could see a potential breakout forming and tried desperately to hold the stock back. The constant manipulation by shorts can be frustrating for investors, but if Lucid continues improving its fundamentals, the stock price will eventually reflect real value, just like we've seen with Tesla overcoming massive short pressure years ago. In conclusion, barring any extreme surprises on the macro front, Lucid's downside risk seems relatively limited this week. Best case scenario, we could see Lucid trading between $2.69 and $2.89 if positive news about tariffs or negotiations hits the headlines. As always, make sure to do your own research, stay informed, and manage your risk accordingly. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you in-depth market analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.